Will Still is not still unbeaten anymore, but Will Still is still being linked to the West Ham United job. Gonzo, did you like my intro?
That's a lot of stills, mate. There's a lot of movement in those stills. If you know
Took me about 30 seconds to think it up. I was quite impressed, actually. Anyway, there's two components to this. So there's the second component, which is, would you like Will Still to come in as West Ham manager? But at the minute, there's more reports in the last 24, 48 hours linking him to the West Ham job. This is the man that's going to replace David Moyes. But the first part I want to discuss is that one reason we keep getting told that David Moyes is still here. The reason David Moyes is still the manager of West Ham is we don't know anyone else. We don't know who's out there. Now, I can kind of accept that to some extent, right? If David Sullivan isn't brushed up on which manager's doing really well in Austria and Belgium, do you know what? Okay, I kind of think it's his job. Yes. But fair enough. I think it's now Mark Noble's job. It depends on which responsibilities he's been handed. But I'm looking at it thinking, well, Mark Noble, it's your job now to get out there and have a look at the Bundesliga, look at Xabi Alonso at Leverkusen and go, he's doing well. Can I take him to West Ham? Get out there and do it, right? But Sullivan, fine, I accept it. But what I can't accept is he doesn't know Will Still. Right? Do you know what I mean? He can't ignore Will Still because there's flashing your knickers, then there's just like indecent exposure. And Will Still is definitely the latter at the minute with West Ham. He's everywhere talking about West Ham, the Premier League, what his dream job is. Oh, he loves Joe Cole, everything. He's giving it everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've not seen the latest round of Nicker flashing. It has to be said, but I was aware of the first time that he maybe revealed his lingerie or lingerie, as we call it around these parts.
His Fanta pubes.
Absolutely at West Ham, and I mean, the shameful thing is he's probably there saying, "Whoa, have a look at that," and no one's looking.
This Moyes' kilt as well. He's really taking the piss.
He absolutely is. He probably went home and went, they barely noticed me. They don't even know who I am. They look straight through me. Did you do the knicker thing, love? I did everything. They didn't even notice. So I think I did see the first round. If he's done a bit more of it, then fair enough. I did see this wonderful clip, which I think had been taken from Fantasy Football, which I think Matt Lucas does fantasy football. I haven't seen I watched it 30 years ago, but I watched it now. And there's this clip where he's talking in because he's right in Belgium, so he's speaking fluent French. Oh, it's beautiful. You know, he's got the accent, he's got the terminology and all the rest of it, and then he breaks from that and then just starts swearing in English and you map it and all and all of this business. So I thought, oh, that's very impressive actually. And look. What can I say about him? David Sullivan, I think you were very kind then, by the way. And I know you were probably been a little bit diplomatic. I find it horrendous that we've been so restrictive in our assessment of which managers can get the job. And it's really, really restrictive, isn't it? So other teams can almost go and select any manager in the world that might be doing right. But first of all, we've got to have Premier League experience. Then he's got to be known. And he's got, and all of this stuff. And you basically restrict it. So it does appear, and this has always been the way with Sullivan, from the moment he sort of appointed Trevor Francis and then Steve Bruce, he's got this sort of, I don't know, this sort of old-fashioned view of recruiting managers. And what's the Brighton guy's name?
Des Ebry.
He wouldn't have even known who he is. And I know people laughing, oh, you don't even know who he is. No, but I'm not the owner of a football club. I'll tell you what, if I was the owner of a football club, I would have appointed somebody in that position that no. And I've said before on numerous occasions, why haven't West Ham gone out and hired David Dean, for instance? He's out of work. He's got the biggest contact book in football. Stuff like this. We were never going to be in with a shout at getting De Zerbi because basically David Sullivan wouldn't have known who he was. And I understand what you're saying now. Will Still, he must know who Will Still is. Surely he's got to know who Will Still is because he's flashing his knickers and doing all the stuff. But you still get to the point, and which I find frustrating, was he's still there thinking, oh, you know what? Oh, Rafa Benitez, he was good at Liverpool in 2006, wasn't he? And I think that we're still sort of stuck by that. Do you? So I would look. It's not that I particularly think Will Still is the next Messiah. He might be very good. I know he hasn't got his coaching badges. I've looked into the guy.
He's enrolled on the course now, so they're no longer paying a £22,000 fine or whatever it was every single game.
Well, I've been in this exact situation.
Well, you were a manager of a club, and they were paying 22 grand a game for you to be in charge.
No, but the
So you
the
weren't in
driving
that exact
licensing used
situation.
no, that never happens. But the driving licensing used to be very, very different. So as long as you had someone sat next to you who was a driver of a certain age and held a full license, you could actually drive with your provisional license. So my poor old mate Richard, he used to have to sit in my car with me while I drove places because I
You
was
can
getting
still do that, can't
Can
you?
you?
Yeah, you just need to slap the L's on, and it's learning.
Well, I think I basically drove around like that for a very, very long period of time because I couldn't be asked to do the full test. So I think he's basically doing a version of that. Although I probably wasn't as good at driving as he is at managing by the looks of things. I do think at the moment, though, Geo, almost anyone would be better than David Moyes. So I think there possibly are better managers out there than Will Still, but are there better managers out there who would do the job now? Probably not now. In November, loads of them, you know. But yeah, those are my thoughts on them.
There's two things, like in regards to Sullivan not recruiting, or Sullivan's filters, if you like. There's two slightly different things. The one, when he says he doesn't know anyone, I don't believe there's not agents of managers out there ringing up West Ham saying, my manager is willing, blah blah blah, 5 million a year for him, he's topped the league in this league or whatever, he'll jump at it. But the second one is, do you know how like we said, the manager must have but Premier League experience is one of those things.
Yeah.
And I just find it really like bonkers to some extent that Sullivan would sign a check for 50 million for Lucas Paqueta, who's never played in the Premier League. But when it comes to the manager, he's like, whoa, too risky. Can't do that. What? You can't risk 5 million a year salary for that manager to get you in. And he possibly wouldn't even be on that because you're recruiting him from another club and he perhaps isn't that well paid. The only reason Moyes is on 5 million a year is because we were desperate and Moyes knew it and bent you over backwards. And I just think, how can you buy all these players from all these leagues, all this millions, yet you're not willing to risk the manager? It's just a bit of a strange thing to me. And if people were to say, well, because the manager might get you relegated, well, first of all, it looks like the tried and tested formulas doing that. But if you say we've got Scamacca, all eggs in one basket, he must score the goals or we're in trouble. Well, getting a striker in for 35 million doesn't score goals could also get you relegated. So I just find it bonkers that he's willing to take this massive financial risk on people with no Premier League experience. But when it comes to the manager, this unnecessary necessity in David Sullivan's eyes is a thing. It's just absolutely wild to me, to be honest with you.
I think you've sort of you've stumbled across one of the points that really annoys me about it, which is the risk. This thing, risk. It gets leaked all the time. It's a risk bringing someone in, a risk. So yes, you're right. One of the things is there's no one available. But as I say, that is because your knowledge base is so small. No. Basically, if basically all you think is only one manager available is Rafa Benitez and he wants 3.5-year contract, then I can understand how you think no one's available. But leave me, Mr. Sullivan, there are more managers in world football than Rafa Benitez, right? The other thing is that actually getting a new manager is there's all these stopping blocks. And what you said, filters, that was a great one. But then you've got these barricades. So you've got the filters, which filter it down to basically candidates of one or two. I mean, it was two. Dyche is there, but he's gone now. And then you've got these blocks, these things that will restrict you from actually doing it and basically, I guess, pulling the trigger. And one of those is it's a risk to bring somebody else in. And this is it. And the insinuation, by saying it's a risk to bring someone else in, you are suggesting and insinuating that David Moyes is the safe bet, that David Moyes is risk-free, that David Moyes, there is no risk involved. When actually, probably, and I look at it, and I think the biggest peril is retaining him at the moment. And I mean, I've just been looking through, just been sort of looking through a few bit of West Ham stuff while I was eating my Marmite covered bagel this morning. I've gone all exotic recently, by the way. As you know, it was porridge yesterday, bagel today, living the life, Geo. And I was looking through some West Ham stuff, and I was just looking at people are starting to extrapolate how many points we'll get. They're running it through the old supercomputer, aren't they? And we'll win that, we'll lose that, And it's tough, and I think a lot of this stuff that's being run through that the big accounts are doing, or whatever the
Yeah.
newspapers, they're factoring in maybe our form over the last 2 years. But actually, if you factor in our form maybe over the last 12 months, it doesn't look clever at all. And it has us, a lot of them has us on 35, 36 points. And you sort of look at it and you think, oh, is that a bit stingy? And then you look at it and actually you look at the game and think, oh, actually, I can understand how people have come to that conclusion, really. So I do find it hard to think that retaining David Moyes is the safe pair of hands. And maybe, particularly when you're looking at it, and it might be that we need whatever you think it might be, but let's say you think it's 4 wins and a draw or whatever. Maybe, just maybe, that new manager bounce gives us that. I do think it's completely untenable if he loses against Southampton. I cannot see, for all the stuff that they say, I cannot think that. I know I've been saying this.
I think it's just too late, Gonzo. I think if we lose against Southampton, I think they'll look at it and go, oh, it's a bit late now, isn't it? We're now in April. Season finishes. It's less than 10 weeks till the season's finished. So you deduct another couple because it's Southampton. There's 7-8 weeks from after the Southampton game till the end of the season. 8 weeks at the most. It's not long. I think they'll look at it and go, better off just keeping him then, really, aren't we?
Well, yeah, I understand that about you can't get someone in then, but even then, just shuffle the deck a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Kevin Keane, the under 18s have got the league wrapped up, so I know he's still got the youth
Nolan.
cup.
So something. Okay, you don't want to pay the compensation, all right? Because that's the other thing that is probably worth pointing out. When a lot of people make the case of this compensation, we'd have to pay him off. You don't. You just have to keep paying his wages. So you basically still gets his monthly paycheck. Well, you know what? You're paying Kevin Keane's wages anyway. You're paying Kevin Nolan's wages. Actually, you're no worse off by just removing David Moyes from his position as manager, putting him technically on gardening leave or whatever, and then just do something. Don't stand there. It's funny enough. Another sorry, a bit of a rant here. The other thing it goes on about is panic. Right? There's risk and there's panic. It is word panic. Well, you know what? Sometimes it's actually all right to panic, right? Sometimes panic means you run away and you avoid whatever's happening. Sometimes panic.
You're aware of the situation.
Yeah. Sometimes
for panic to occur, you're aware of what's happening.
Yes. Sometimes panic makes you jump out the way of whatever's oncoming. Actually, to the opposite of panic is to be frozen. What they call it, like a deer caught in the headlights, bang, and it gets hit. So I just think his thinking is so muddled and so, I don't know what it is about his thinking. It is so regimented and so focused, which I guess are the very qualities that enabled him to build the fortune he has. But when you're in a bit of a pickle like this, maybe you've got to think of alternative things, and I'm not sure he's capable of doing it.
I think it's a bit of fear as well. I think because I do wonder if Moyes hadn't had his first tenure here, would he have this long? I'm not convinced, in all honesty. I think he probably regrets getting rid of Moyes the first time, and possibly has a little bit of fear of making the same mistake a second time. And that's why he's perhaps a little bit hesitant to dismiss him. One thing I will say is, Will Still is the next West Ham manager. Is that someone you'd like? Or I know you said earlier, you said anyone but Moyes. I'm not sure I'm at that point. I don't think anyone's better. For example, Nathan Jones at Southampton's a prime example of
no, but but I prefer Kevin Nolan to David Moyes at the moment. For the last few games, I'd prefer Kevin Nolan. I'll say that. Yes, not
long term. Would you like Will Still?
I don't know. I've not seen enough
I don't
yet.
either. I don't have an opinion.
I'd like to see him given a go between now and the end of the season. I wouldn't not mind that at all. I think he could give us an uplift. He seems to have personality as well. He seems to have character. Look, we discussed yesterday the Longhello thing. He's not on his own. Longhello. There's a lot of people, and it's it's not just like these are whispers. People are writing articles. People are writing books. Moyes is not often not an uplifting person to be around. And I think I think it's fine. I think in life, we all know people that are more quiet than others and stuff like that. That's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. But I think at a time when you need a bit of injection of encouragement, lifting the spirits, some motivating. That's a big one. I think it's hard when the message is coming from somebody like that. It's not enough to just say, oh, okay, come on, actually, you need someone who's got a bit of effervescence in their personality. It's someone who's got some bright. It's also some new ideas, and someone who can maybe get those players turning up at that training ground with a spring in their step, thinking, "Oh, well, this is good. I'm looking forward to training today." Actually, I have some belief in it. It's very hard for Moyes, who's been giving the same message for a long, long time, and it's been failing, to turn around to the players and think, okay, we're going to do this in this game, and it's going to work. Because, you know, just naturally human nature, you think, well, I said that last week, mate, and the week before. And he said that last week. It doesn't work, and you start to lose faith in him. And even just someone coming in who can lift their spirits and have a little bit of faith in, who's got a couple of new training drills, that could make the difference. That could make 3 points difference. And if it does, that could well make the difference between the staying up and going down. And if that's the case, Will Still's the man. Bring him in. And you know what? If he does well between now and the end of the season, why not? Why not? But and bear in mind, he hasn't even got any coaching badges at the moment. He loves West Ham, as you say. He's giving us the come on. And if that's the case, then okay, mate, we're going to give you another year. Offer it. Make an offer. Don't be paralysed and be standing there doing nothing.
Yeah, he's taken temporary jobs before as well in his past. I don't know if he would still take another one because he's obviously got a good job at the minute. He's doing really well and his profile's skyrocketing. You know, it was 6 months ago, I never heard of the bugger. In the last month, he's been on TalkSport, and this morning I saw a clip of him driving around a buggy in the training ground in France, saying about how he'd love to manage in the Premier League, etc., etc. And he's quite defensive of himself, which I quite like, because he's also been given this like unfair reputation that he learned his trade on Football Manager, and he's a bit like, no, I just enjoy playing Football Manager. I've gone to university, I've got the highest diploma possible in football coaching, etc., etc. But because he doesn't have his coaching badges and he plays Football Manager, there's a stigma attached to him that he's like taught himself by playing Football Manager. And I quite like listening to him, actually. It's a really good story. I'm glad the story's come to an end now. I got a bit fed up every weekend seeing now he's now gone on an additional league game unbeaten. And when he lost in the cup, it changed from he's unbeaten to unbeaten in the league. And then he's got to 22 games. Well done. He lost at the weekend. I think, thank God, I don't have to keep seeing this thing. But like I said this morning, he was on Sky, driving around the buggy, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to manage in the Premier League and stuff. And you could see the pride in his face because he said he was linked to like the Southampton and Leeds jobs. And he said, yeah. So my name was up there with some other managers that I don't feel like I deserve to be up there with at the minute. You can see the pride in him, thinking, I'm doing all right here. He's in a really good position. And it's one of them that if we were to get him now and get relegated, he might stick around. If we were to get relegated, I don't know, you can get him. Sure. You're in the Championship. Say, well, do you fancy him? I say, hey, no. My stock's greater than yours right now. You're going down. I'm at the top of everybody's looking at me. At the top, maybe not PSG, but whenever the Lyon gig or something comes up, they might look at me and take me on, kind of thing. You're right at West Ham. I don't need a Championship job. So I think there's maybe a small window of opportunity. Do I want him? I couldn't tell you. I'm like Gonzo. I've not seen anything, even with the story when it came out, and it's got a lot of attention. I'm aware he's a big West Ham fan, and while it's caught my attention, I've had a little read and whatever, I've still not watched any of his football. No, nothing. Couldn't even tell you what formation he plays. I know nothing about him. So do I want him? I don't have an opinion. And like I said, this is David Sullivan's job. It's harder to have an opinion on a manager than it is a player, because you can go watch a game for 5 games and you can come away with a strong opinion on a player in those 5 games. You can watch a striker and go, okay, now I've got, is he fast? What's his movement like? Is he a good finisher? Is he good in the air? You learn all that in 5 games. As a manager, you learn nothing in 5 games. You need a massive data pool of that manager, tactics, formations, substitutions. You know, you could go watch 10 games and his main man sat out injured or something. You don't know. You don't. It's really hard, in my opinion. It's really, really hard to judge a manager. You need a lot of research to go into that one in order to find it. That's why I say sympathy with Sullivan. I don't have any, because you should have put somebody in place to do all this on his behalf. For somebody that likes scouring the South American leagues for a scorer that you might just make work out, I think, well, I've not been doing that for a manager. That might just work out. But anyway, so Will still at West Ham. Yeah, if it happens, it's good. It'd be quite nice. It would be a nice romantic story. But David Martin was a romantic story. It didn't mean I want him as my number 1 keeper forever at West Ham. So anyway, shall we leave it there, my friend?
Yes, mate. Yes, indeed.
There you go. So Will Still is still being linked to West Ham. You can let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Please do drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it by clicking thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new to Chat myself and Gonzo. Catch you in a bit.